Welcome to West Kentucky's Cooking at the College. I'm your host, Chef Brett McCarthy, and I want to cook with you. It's Boule's, baby! Welcome to West Kentucky Community and Technical College's Cooking at the College. I'm your host, Chef Brett McCarthy, and we're going to be making bread today, but not just any bread. We're going to be making little boules. Now, a boule is just a round bread, basically, and essentially this is kind of like an artesian bread. That's kind of like the big buzzword these days, to have artesian breads, even though artesian bread's been around for a very long time. And essentially, we're going to be turning that into a soup bowl. Now, in some restaurants, you might actually see soup served out of a bread bowl, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So these are small little breads that we're going to carve out the insides, and we're going to put a soup in it. Actually, we're going to make a chili. I'm going to show you how to make Chef McCarthy's version of a chili. And so we're going to start out. Now, what we have here is some very simple ingredients. We have 3 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. And you can use the nice flour, the organic, whatever kind you want. You can use just the unbleached. Sometimes King Arthur is nice. We also have some rye flour. We got 3/4 cups of rye flour. Now you can use whole wheat too. That's just going to add a little bit more strength to the gluten. Sometimes the bread won't hold up very well. The all-purpose doesn't have enough gluten, so it wants to spread a little bit too much. So this just gives it a little bit more strength. We got a couple teaspoons of salt. We have 2 tablespoons of powdered milk, okay? We also have 2 teaspoons of instant dry yeast. Now, instant dry yeast, you might ask, what is instant dry yeast? Well, this is yeast that you can mix with your dry ingredients, and you don't have to dilute first or bloom. When you put it in water, usually you put a little sugar and you let it bloom, and then you add it to your dry ingredients. This can be added right to your dry ingredients. Now, you might not be able to find instant yeast in your supermarket. What it will be called is bread machine yeast, okay? So just so you know, it's actually called bread machine yeast, same thing, all right? And then we have, I guess that's a couple tablespoons or so of olive oil, all right? And that's extra virgin olive oil. And then we have a 1.5 cups of water. Now, it has to be warm, between 105 and 115. I made it just a little bit hotter because I don't have to worry about killing the yeast so much. By the time I add it to the flour, it's going to really cool down quickly. So I made it a little bit hotter than I usually do. So we're just going to add it all together. This is real easy. You just add everything together. So you got the all-purpose flour. We have the rye flour. Got our salt, got our powdered milk, got our olive oil, we got our yeast right in there, and then I'm going to stir that up. I always have to remember not to yell while this is going on, because essentially I want to talk over the sound of the mixer, but I don't have to do that, as I'm told. Okay, we're going to add the water. At this point, it's going to start coming together. Now, the thing is, if you have a really strong mixer, it sometimes has a tendency to want to lift up, so you're going to have to hold the mixer. Be very careful not to put your hand anywhere near the dough hook. Okay. At this point, I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. Even though you can knead it entirely with the dough hook, I'm going to knead some of it by hand. Oh, Bessie. Whoa, Bessie. Now you see where it's actually come away from the hook. And all you have to do, if it starts to stick to the hook again, because you don't want to tear at the dough. You want it to be kneaded, because dough is very kneady. All right, ba-dum boom. And my jokes are very bad. Okay, so there we go, we got this. And now all we have to do is bring this over to our bench, just like that. So we have the dough here, and we're just going to bring it over to our baker's bench, and we're just going to knead this really nice. I just like to knead the dough, and you know, when you're really mad at somebody, you can, you know, really. So he thinks he's going to take the car, you know. No, he's not going to take the car. It's my car. Problems. So anyways, you can knead it. Now you don't want to tear it. You just want to knead it really nice, fold it over, and just like that. So it's very important that you don't tear at the dough. Kneading isn't tearing at the dough. So you don't want to break it apart, actually tear it like that. You just want to fold it over and just move it around. It should be really easy to work with. You notice that in the bowl, it started to come away from the sides. That's when you know it's ready to be kneaded. Now you might have to add a little bit more flour, a little bit more moisture. Everybody says baking is an exact science, and for the most part that's true. But when it comes to breads, that's not, you know, there's a little bit of flexibility there. So, you know, you might have to add a little more flour, or even add a little bit of flour when you're kneading to keep it from being too sticky. But it shouldn't stick to your hands hardly at all. And you just go like that. When you've done this for about 5 minutes, and I'm not going to do it for the full time, okay, you're going to roll it into a bowl. You're going to add a little bit of oil to your bowl. Okay. And this is just going to keep it from drying out. And I kind of push it down a little bit. And the reason why I do that is because I can better gauge when it's double in bulk. You're going to cover it with plastic wrap and then put that in a warm place, maybe on top of the stove or something. You just don't want to make sure that it gets too hot, because if it gets too hot, it'll kill the yeast. So you want to be very careful about that. And that's really about it. This yeast has to last 24 hours, because this is something that you're actually going to put these boules, once they're formed, you're going to put them in the cooler, your refrigerator, from anywhere from 4 hours to as long as 24 hours. That's called retarding, and retarding actually is kind of letting the yeast grow very naturally and very slowly. And it gives you a very much nicer texture, and gives you that very artesian kind of taste, and that crusty, that outer crust, and it just makes it really tasty. So that's how that works. Okay, so when we get back, I'm going to show you how to shape them, and we're going to go from there. And we'll see you back in just a minute. Well, welcome back to Cooking at the College. I'm your host, Chef Brett McCarthy. Now, I did some dough earlier, and it's just coming out of the proof box. And I wanted to show you something that I made up, and you can actually buy these already with the graduations on them, the little markings, I should say. And essentially, if you make a marking, if you press down your dough just before you get it, just when it comes out after you first knead it, that first kneading, and you make a mark right there, then you make a mark at equal distance from the bottom to this mark, same distance, then you'll know when it gets to, when it's doubled in size, and that's where you want it to be. So that just kind of tells you that it's ready. So it's just one way to do it. I didn't have another bucket, or I would have done it for the first batch that I made. But that's just something that I do, okay? and we're going to just kind of, we're going to make it kind of into a loaf, just like that. And I'm just doing that so that it's easy to cut into equal portions. Okay, and I need 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is approximate. Okay. Now, if you want them all exactly equal, you're going to have a scale. And what we do is we just put that on the scale and just kind of make sure. It says about 10.3 ounces, 10.2, 9.6, and this is going to be a little bit. It's only 7.8. So we're going to take a little bit off, and we're going to make that into just about 10 ounces. There we go, 9.9. A little bit more there. Looks like we're going to end up with about 8.5. There we go. Yeah. So that's about what you want, okay? And actually, we had to take a little bit away from here. Looks like we're all going to be about 8.6, 8.5. So we're going to have a little bit left over. So about 8.5 ounces is what we're looking at. It's going to vary. Sometimes be anywhere from between 8.5 ounces to 10 ounces with this recipe. That's about what we were finding. Okay, so now you're just going to knead it around. You're going to form it into just like that. And you don't have to mess with it a lot. Just have to go like that and just spread them out a little bit. And I'm just going to spray it just ever so slightly on the parchment paper. And really a half sheet pan is big enough for all these. Okay. And you see that I'm putting them with enough space between them, kind of at an angle to each other. All right, and that's all there is to it. Now, what we're going to do from there is we're going to take some plastic wrap, and for each one individually, we're going to coat it with some spray. That'll keep the plastic wrap from sticking to it. And I'll put a little bit more on there, and we'll do that for each individual boule. Now that'll go, all these boules will go into the cooler for 4 hours to 24 hours. The longer you keep them into the cooler, as long as it's below 24 hours, the nicer the texture is going to be. So this is something you could do the night before and then bake them off the next morning or sometime late in the morning, and you'll have a very nice crusty texture, and it'll really develop that yeast very nicely. So when we get back, I'm going to show you what the students made, and they made these yesterday, and they're just ready to come out of the cooler now. See you back in a moment. Welcome back to the show, and these are the ones that the students made just yesterday. They're just coming out of the cooler now. You can see that they've risen quite a bit. You can see some are just a little bit smaller than others, and that just depends on how much flour they added. You know, like I said, it's not an exact science, and some of them came out a little bit heavier than others. Now, what we want to do is we want to take a razor. Now, this is going to help those loaves just really pop open when we put them in the oven. So we're just going to go like that. It just scores them nicely. All right. It's going to give them a nice pretty look there. Okay, and I'm going to put these right into the oven. Now, I let them sit for about 30 minutes, and that does just help them a little bit just to kind of warm up and kind of acclimate to their environment, and the yeast will have just time to kind of just get active back into its groove. So while you're preheating the oven, you want to just let them sit out for just about 30 minutes or so. So I did have them sitting out. So that's all there is to it. So we'll see you back in just a moment. Welcome back to Cooking at the College. I'm your host, Chef Brett McCarthy, and we're going to be making some nice chili. Now, my wife was nice enough to make some very nice beans here, and I just think chili is so much better when you don't use the canned variety, so she actually made these beans. Now, she made this in a bean pot, and I won't go into a lot of detail about a bean pot, but I don't have to soak the beans when we use a bean pot. It's actually a clay pot, and it's meant to be put on top of the stove. It works so nice, and if you can get a hold of one, they're just beautiful, but they'll actually cook on relatively low heat. Once you brought them to a boil, they'll actually cook your beans in about 2 hours. So normally you have to soak beans overnight, and what that does is actually softens them up a little bit so that they'll actually get completely soft when you cook them. But these just work just wonderfully. And these are actually a pinto bean. Not a kidney bean. You can use either kidney or pinto. It's up to you. All right. And we have some chopped tomatoes. That's about 2 cans. Those 15.9 ounce cans. Okay. Almost a pound there. 2 pounds of chopped tomatoes. We got some onions. That's about 12 ounces or 3/4 of a cup of diced onion. We got a small can. Talking about those little tiny 6.9 ounce cans or so. I think they're about 6.9 ounces. Of tomato paste. And then we have some cayenne pepper. Now you can use either cayenne pepper or red pepper flakes. It's up to you, but that'll be your heat. And we've got a little black pepper, some nice ground cumin, some onion powder, and some garlic powder. You can use your own garlic, and a lot of times when my wife is making the beans, she'll actually put some garlic cloves right in the beans. Tastes wonderful. She'll put some onions in there. So that works really well. So you can certainly go to town on that. And of course we have to have some chili powder. Chili powder isn't that spicy, as you know, so you can use quite a bit of that. We also got some cilantro, and you can use the cilantro actually right in the chili. It makes it really, really nice, especially topping the chili with the cilantro, but we're just going to mainly use it for garnish, okay? And I got some cheese to melt onto the chili when we're all done. So, oh, and of course the creme de la creme. Got to have some ground beef. Now I use ground sirloin. I like that very much. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to saute the onions, and I'm just going to put that right over here real quick. And then the cameraman's going to move around in a few minutes, and we'll see you back in just a moment, okay? Okay, welcome back. We got our onions already in there, and they're sauteing away. And what I'm doing, obviously, besides adding hamburger to here, burger meat, I'm going to put that in there. You notice ground sirloin is quite a bit leaner, so it'll stick at first because not a lot of fat in there. It really makes for a very nice chili, I think. And we're going to cook that off until it's nice and brown. Now, I'm doing this in 2 separate pots at first because I'm going to drain off if there is any excess or residual fat, but I don't think there's going to be that much with this ground sirloin. So I just wanted to start in this pot, and sometimes I'll use the oil from the hamburger meat. I'll take that out and then saute my onions in that oil. So that's all there's to that. All right. I'm going to turn that up just a little bit there. This is, I don't think this will have hardly any fat. You know, you get what you pay for with meat. If you pay less, this was relatively expensive. I think this was about a little over about $4.75 or something a pound. But I mean, you can see that you get a lot more product when you're done, because fat just goes away and renders away, and you get a lot less meat. So, so if you have an 80-20 blend, which is 20% fat to 80% lean, you're going to get what you pay for, and you're going to have a 20% loss at least. And once you take away the water, you're only ending up with probably around 70 to 75% of what your original weight was. So it's all relative, and if you took that weight and divided it into what you paid for it, you probably end up paying about the same as this meat, which has much less shrinkage. Okay, when we get back, I'm going to show you what I'm going to add to it, and then we're going to go from there. Okay, see you back in just a second. Welcome back to Cooking at the College, and our boules are coming out here, and they're pretty. I just wanted to show you real quickly how you can check if they're done. You can actually take the temperature of bread. I didn't know if you knew this, but when it gets to 100 and between 195 and 205, it's done. And of course you can just tap them and they sound hollow inside. That's another way to tell. But this is just a fun way to tell, and then you know that it is done. And so we're just going to put these over here real quick. Put them over there and shut this. And we're going to get this started. All right. We're going to add our onions, and we're a little pressed for time, so I'm going to go along a little bit more quickly than usual. Okay. We're going to add our chili powder. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of chili powder. And I've already drained that ground beef. I'm going to add a good healthy tablespoon of ground cumin. Just a little bit of black pepper. My bad. I guess we could call it black powder. Still be all right with that. All right, onion powder. Good tablespoon of that. Garlic powder. Our tomatoes, tomato paste. Of course, chili is better when it's sat overnight. That's because all those flavors blossom, just kind of like the yeast I was talking to you about. They all come out. I'm just going to add about a half a teaspoon cayenne pepper and a good with water, with juice, about 3 cups or 4 cups of beans. We'll see how that looks. I think I'm going to do 4 cups here. What the heck, 5 cups. Just got to kind of estimate there. And we're just going to stir that up. Now you can make it as hot as you want. Depending on how you like it. I like my chili mildly hot. I like it hot enough where I can, get a little heat, complement that sour cream. That sour cream can cool it down a little bit, but not so hot that I can't taste all the flavors. We're going to cook this out. Now normally you'd let this cook out for, a good 45 minutes or so. We won't have that kind of time, but we are going to let it cook out for about 15 minutes. Okay, so we have the boule here. What we're going to do is we're going to cut it. You can just cut it straight across, but what I found to get it a nice accurate cut is I kind of go around like this. Got to work a little bit quickly. We don't have all that much time. Okay. Then we're going to take, in about a 1/2 inch in, we're just going to go at an angle here. We want to make sure that we don't cut through to the bottom. Okay, we're going to just dig that out there a little bit. Take out the excess. Okay. Just like that. All right. And we're going to get our chili. Whoa! All right, which looks beautiful. Okay. Just like that. Okay. I'm going to put that in there. Just like that, and then we're going to put our cheese on top. And let me just grab a sheet pan. I'm sorry I'm going out of camera here. I didn't have an extra sheet pan. Sorry about that. And we're just going to put a little bit of cheese on there. Just like that. And you can be pretty generous with that. And that's going to go right into the oven. And by the power of TV here, we got one, I believe, ready, and look at that. Is that just not the most beautiful thing that you ever did see? We're going to put that right on there. Okay, put that just like that. That's the opening. A little bit of beautiful cilantro, just like that, and just a little bit of sour cream. I don't even have a nice spoon for my sour cream, so it's going to get a little bit of, I'm just going to dollop that on there. Okay, just like that. Oh, and is that just not the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? So we got our bread boule, we got our chili in there, melted cheese, and this is just, I'm telling you, on a cold winter day, ooh la la, and I want to cook with you. Welcome to West Kentucky. Wah, wah, wah. La 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 la. Ah, la 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 la.
Clean up, everybody clean up.